You are joining us with the most epic spacefaring adventure in the Marvel Universe and the eventual birth of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Keep in mind this event takes place before the current Guardians of the Galaxy and the version from the movie that you are aware of. So the versions of Star-Lord, Drax, and Gamora that you are about to meet are not your family-friendly Marvel movie versions. Also, if this is your first video at Comicstorian, well, you have found the complete story series. In this series, we explore comics new and old, recapping them with music, voices, and sound effects. If this is your first Annihilation video, then I'll link you the first two parts down below, the parts where Drax and Nova became involved. Now with Annihilation Day long past and Annihilus pushed back, Nova has had time to build up a resistance to the wave, and while his battle with Annihilus did not win the war, it did delay everyone enough for him to make a united front. And at his side to help him organize the ordeal, Peter Quill. He used to be known as the Star-Lord, but circumstances have changed, making it so that he didn't want to go by that name anymore. Richard Rider, the hero that gave the universe a chance to prepare, has taken the role of Commander-in-Chief, and as they look across the battlefield laid out in front of them, Peter explains to Richard that this is their last stand, and he'd prefer that they fall back to the secondary perimeter. Richard asks if Gamora agrees, and Peter tells him that she is off on a black op. There's no word right now. The wall next to them is suddenly overtaken by the bug army assaulting the walls, and Peter begins spouting off which perimeters they just lost. Richard runs into the battle yelling for him to tell him what's happening in English, and Peter tells him the force fields are gonna drop. Then they lose the right flank to the onslaught. Luckily, there is the Kree, and Ronan the Conqueror. He has been in his own conflict where he is currently on trial for his actions and had his title stripped. As he tore through the bug bodies, he saw that it was a lost cause and he called for everyone to retreat. While this was happening up in space, the former heralds of Galactus are battling it out with the bugs in the air. It's Fire-Lord, Redshift, and Stardust, and they fight not to rescue the galaxy, but for themselves, as Annihilus has ordered their capture for an unknown reason. As Peter pulls the survivors with them to the deeper reaches of the base, Richard Rider throws his helmet on, activating his Nova powers. I can't lead from the rear, Peter. Get them to safety. And he launches into the battle to hold back the bug scum. During this portion of the conflict, the Kree have grabbed Cammy and they make a break for it while Drax destroys everything in front of him. Cammy is the little girl that Drax met on the planet Earth before being picked up and joining into this fight. She's been tagging along. And Drax, well, he's the destroyer after all, and he's about to get buried in bugs. And Richard blasts by burying them. Took you long enough. You're welcome. The force fields are down. Tell me something I don't know. Richard grabs Drax's hand and they blast up into the sky, soaring over the battlefield, and Drax tells him, "You know what you have to do. This base is lost." Richard drops Drax before pondering it for only a second, and then he calls in the bombardment. The entire base is destroyed, and anyone who is too slow to leave loses their lives. Up in space, Fire-Lord breaks down the hull of a spaceship and he walks inside, blasting his powers cosmic at anything that moves until he walks into the main chamber. Queen, order your forces to stand down. You are defeated. I am? And what of you? You reek of death and you will expire soon. The Fire-Lord raises his power up, and his eyes begin to blaze with that fire inside. Ladies first. With the loss of the Queen, the attack wave on the base fell apart, and the Resistance didn't lose that day. Sensing the loss of a Queen, Annihilus contacts someone that he has brought in to help gain the cosmic powers, Thanos. Thanos tells him, "You need the cosmic power, because you asked me for a way to extract the cosmic power. So how about you stop distracting me?" Annihilus kills the comms and turns to his second in command, Ravenous. "How can we deal with these heralds, as they vex me so?" And Ravenous brings up a rather good point. They know you want them alive. You've removed the threat of death from them. So Annihilus tells him, "Fine! Exterminate them!" Meanwhile, back with Richard, he begins to put his suit back on and he looks at his bedmate. Go back to sleep. Gamora looks at him with nothing but a sheet covering her naked body. That in order? Is there something wrong? I've been thinking. You've been hanging around with Peter too much. You're developing a sense of humor. Bite your tongue. He gets up to leave her there and he looks for Peter, where they begin to go over how screwed they are. He explains the major problems. The Heralds are involved, but the Shi'ar are holding back and the Badoon have hunkered down, not wanting to be involved in this. While they go over how they really don't have anyone to stand with them, Cammy sees Drax sharpening his knife. "You're only doing this to get to him, aren't you?" "Thanos." And Drax smirks. "Clever girl." Peter and Richard walk into the holding chambers where they have the queen that Firelord defeated prisoner, and they demand to know what's going on. She tells them, "Pray for death, because we have the Devourer of Worlds, Galactus, and the Silver Surfer. Because while you fought us here, elsewhere Annihilus won his fight. Galactus isn't the only cosmic entity out there. No, Thanos informed Annihilus of the others, Aegis and Tenebros. Using them, we've defeated a Galactus and his herald, and we've imprisoned their power." And then she warns them. "Annihilus has all, be it a mad titan or an elder god. They're all working for Annihilus. This war has ended." The next day, Drax is occupied preparing for his battle when out of nowhere, Phyla arrives telling him that he's a hard man to find. Thanos has his daughter. Phyla and Moondragon went to the graves on Titan to pay their respects when Thanos arrived. He blasted Phyla and he tore Moondragon's ear from her head before taking her prisoner. He threw the ear to Phyla to show as a warning to Drax. If Drax approaches and does anything to Thanos, he'll kill his daughter. But Drax tells him, "It is my destiny to kill Thanos." And Phyla argues, "It's your daughter!" Drax walks off and Cammy asks Phyla if she can keep the ear. Meanwhile, the Kree armies are refusing to all team up with Richard. If one sides with him, none of the others will. Ronan, the former accuser, has had enough and he blasts the leaders of the Furio house, making him their new commander. While this is happening, Praxagora delivers the body of the Super Skrull after his fight to the Resistance. She explains that in order to rescue her, the Super Skrull absorbed the heat that she was generating to save her life. And at that moment, Ravenous and his troops all teleport in. Richard readies to fight and he asks Peter, "Who are these guys?" "Oh, the usual. Drax, Pybok, a giant mad thinker robot." "Peter, it's not good, Richard." Gamora tells everyone that she senses the energy. Thanos is who teleported them in, and Ravenous tells his troops, "Kill them." Meanwhile, up at Annihilation's ship, we see that Thanos has discovered a way to harness the power cosmic, as both Galactus and the Silver Surfer are contained in his super weapon. Ravenous calls out for Pybok to get the snipers, Drax to kill Gamora, and the Nova is mine. Peter then whines that he's not even on Ravenous's radar, and as Ronan swings his hammer at Ravenous and the bolts fly by, Peter takes cover. Everyone begins their battles with Drax running along the broken wall, leaping in to fight the ground troops. After a quick slice opens up a trooper in front of him, he's suddenly hit in the face with thousands of tiny insects and he calls out, "This thing is infested!" But before they can even deal with that, another portal opens up and out jumps Annihilus's elite, the Centaurians. While this is happening, the bug that Drax is on begins running into a cave while he stabs it over and over and over, trying to kill it. It falls to the ground still squirming, so Drax continues to stab it over and over until something blasts him off of it. It begins to fly down after him, so he gets up, leaping into the air to attack it, and he brings it down to the ground. Meanwhile, Praxagora is trying to get the Super Skrull's body out of the fight, and the former heralds of Galactus arrive, burning the entire battlefield with no discretion. While Ravenous continues to battle with Ronan, he asks him, "The Kree cast you out and you still defend them?" And he simply replies, "To my dying breath." But while they've slightly held their ground, the Annihilation wave has been moving closer and closer to them, until it is now far too late. As the primary wave broke down the doors to their haven, outside they begin to see the thousands upon thousands of bugs coming to attack. While this is happening, Phyla and Peter decide to get the heck out of Dodge, as Nova tells them to evacuate as many as they can and stay alive. Up in Annihilus's command ship, he lands blasting off as much power as he can, and he walks into the central chamber, where Thanos is waiting. Thanos is already messing with the devices attached to Galactus, and Annihilus gives the order, "Destroy the planet! Let Galactus feed and we will take their power!" Back on the planet, Ravenous buries Ronan into a wall, and then he grabs him by the throat, prepared to finish off the former accuser, until Firelord shows up. His death will be the stuff of legends, and yours, Ravenous? What say we find out? Ravenous turns to him and smiles. "Oh yes, let's do that." The explosion is massive, and even Richard turns around asking, "What's going on now?" And Peter tells him, "This keeps getting better and better. I say it's time to call it a day." Richard then turns to him, "Horrible news though. We have nowhere to fall back to, Peter." And it's Drax that clarifies. He doesn't mean retreat. He means get off world. This planet is lost. Our heroes all begin to run into the depths of the base looking for a method of escape, while Drax begins to ask, "Who's gonna stay and fight to the end?" Peter tells him that it's only gonna be volunteers. This is death. While they try to figure out what's going on, Drax notices that the android is even leaving the planet, which isn't a good sign. Over with Gamora, she's winning her fight, but one of the former heralds swoops in grabbing her, telling her, "It is time to go." She tries to argue, but the herald tells her, "Galactus is here." As everyone is preparing to board the escape vessels, the rubble is thrown aside, and the Super Skrull stands up, not dead, but alive, holding the unconscious bodies of Firelord and Ronan, asking the question, "Why was I buried under the rubble?" Everyone loads up into the escape ships and Cammy runs in asking for Drax, but Peter holds her back as the door shuts behind her. Drax! Drax is still out there! Stop the launch! And Peter tells her, his choice, girl, strap in. As she screamed for Drax, Drax jumped back in to fight the bugs. This was the moment that the power of Galactus was to be used, and he blasted the entire planet as the remaining forces from Annihilation were teleported off-world. And Drax was buried under the force of the power cosmic. Or did he? Because instead, this is all a part of Drax's plan. He ran to his own escape ship and he blasted off into space because Thanos is his destiny. Inside of the command ship, Annihilus demands that Thanos give him the power cosmic, and Thanos insists that he feeds something to Galactus, otherwise Galactus is going to die, and they won't have his power. He then walked off. Meanwhile, our heroes made their way to the Sol system where they overlook Earth. Richard tells Peter that they have to stop Annihilus, otherwise this world is lost, and Peter mentions, you know, the heroes down there can stop Annihilus and Thanos. Richard tells him, have you not been monitoring the transmissions? The superheroes are in a civil war. A house divided cannot stand. We had a united front and look where that got us. They are in warring factions down there. They're no use to us. I just as soon bring in the Badoons, as if they've forgotten how to be heroes. I'm gonna go end this, Peter. Peter turns to leave. I'll get my things then. Huh? If you think that I'm gonna let you run off and get yourself killed without me being there to tell you I told you so, you're crazy, Richard. Richard Rider smiles. Never crossed my mind, Peter. Over in Annihilus's command ship, Drax has landed and he's tearing the bugs apart as he makes his way through it. He eventually murders another queen, causing her forces to fall in disarray, and then he smiles. This'll work. This means some very bad things for Thanos. Back with Moondragon and Thanos, he continues to taunt her and she decides to peek into his mind, and what she sees terrifies her. There's a failsafe built into Galactus. Only Thanos can turn off the Galactus super weapon, which is a problem because, as Moondragon explains, when she peeked into Annihilus's head, his plan is to do nothing more than absorb all of the planets, eating that power, because he wants Galactus to become a cosmic bomb and wipe all life in the galaxy out. After another fight to regain control of her own body, Moondragon falls again, and Thanos at least agrees with Moondragon, and he heads over to turn off the Galactus bomb. But don't worry, her daddy is here to end this, as Drax pries open some doors and burns through the bugs in front of him. Once he finally finds Thanos and Moondragon, he jumps in full of spit and vinegar, overflowing with power. Moondragon tries to tell Drax to stop yelling at him to let Thanos finish, only he can stop Annihilus, and Drax in response throws his knife at his own daughter, letting the hilt hit her on the head and knock her out. He then charges at Thanos as Thanos tells him, give me a damned moment, Destroyer. I must finish this. Drax cares not as he dives in with both of his knives. Thanos throws him aside and then he looks at the hole that he created, and he sees Mistress Death. When he looks down, he sees that Drax punched a hole in his chest, removing his heart. Staring at it, Thanos can only say, interesting. Moondragon wakes up asking Drax what did he do, and he tells her, I did what I was created to do. And she tells him, he doomed them all. She tries to explain what he did, and Drax tells her that Galactus is not his concern. He did what he was created to do, destroy Thanos. And then he asks what Thanos' plans were. She tells him that he had a modified power array that he was going to use to free the Devourer. So Drax tells her, I got this. She tries to argue that Thanos had ultimate power, so Drax jumps down into the power array of Galactus. He looks up at the Devourer and he tells him, I'm gonna free you, Devourer. Make sure my daughter is delivered safely. He then tears off the couplings and pulls a body out of the power array, and that's when we see the Silver Surfer. Drax drags the unconscious body over to the power array, and then using the power cosmic, he begins the shutdown process, which wakes up the Surfer, who then puts both of his hands into the array, overflowing it with power. He then collapses, telling Drax, it is done. A giant purple hand begins to reach up, and then we begin to hear the bellowing voice of a cosmic entity, one known as Galactus. Know me, Annihilus. Know me and no fear. And then he begins to burn through Annihilus's ship. Meanwhile, over on the Kree homeworld, Ronan has teamed up with the Super Skrull to retake Hala and clear his name. And that's when we see the Centurions, Annihilus's lapdogs. Ronan knows that this can only mean that the House Firo has sold the Kree Empire to the enemy, and he kicks in their front door. Standing there waiting for him is Ravenous, who's brokering the deal. The Super Skrull lands by his side on fire, and he begins to tangle with Ravenous. But using this as an opportunity, Ronan approaches Ravenous. Know that you have been judged, and you have been found guilty! And he smashes Ravenous his head with his hammer. He then takes control, leaving the accusers to handle the house. He walks into the Supreme Intelligence's chamber, telling him, you deserved better than this, and you will be remembered. As he breaks the tank holding the giant head, he walks out to a crowd cheering his name, as he has liberated the Kree Empire. But honestly, that's a story that we've barely touched on, and it's time to tell you how all of this ends and begins. The giant purple hand reaches up with the surfer riding in front of him, and the surfer says it. No more. As the ship begins to fall apart, Drax yells out, "You gave your word! You said that you would bring her to safety!" But before he can even finish his words, they've been teleported far off-world. Annihilus jumps up demanding to know, "What happened? The power cosmic was mine!" And Galactus tells his herald, "Go forth. Herald my rage!" He begins to burn everything around him as the Silver Surfer takes point, and Annihilus watches as a giant flaming ball of rage comes at him, demanding to know how his whole plan was undone by the Mad Titan. But as it fades, Annihilus stands on a torn rock, declaring that he has survived. Annihilus lives! He looks over to see Galactus walking away, thinking that his job is done, and then he holds up his hands, charging up his power. Annihilus is patient! Annihilus will win, Devourer! And then he hears a voice behind him. No, it ends here. And there stands Richard Rider with Peter Quill and Pyra. One way or another, I'm gonna end you, Annihilus. Annihilus looks at Richard and he sees him using the Nova Force to protect his friends. The Nova thing survived to Galactus as well! Only one of us walks away, Annihilus. Agreed. And with that, they rocket at each other in a massive explosion. They become entangled with punches and kicks. Annihilus throws Richard into a rock nearby and he drives home his point as he digs into Richard's chest. He then smacks Richard down again. Pyra sees the problem. Annihilus still has the quantum bands. So she pushes against the shield that Nova left her in until it breaks. And as Annihilus stands over Richard, ready to end it, she hits him in the back. He blasts her out of the way, and she reaches out. And with that, the quantum bands leave Annihilus's body, and they go to her. As she tells him, the bands don't like to stand evil, and I gave them an alternative. She returns to the bands, ready to kill him, but Annihilus blasts her back. And then he turns to Richard. Annihilus will keep coming until he eats you! And Richard charges at him. You keep saying that, but I think the quantum bands were fueling you. Surviving Galactus drained you, and your flapping jaw is your weakness in your armor. He literally reaches down into Annihilus's throat and grabs whatever he can, tearing out his bug organs. This is for the Nova Corps! With that, he collapses. Off in the distance, Thanos and Mistress Death looking down on the defeat of Annihilus. And thus, the Annihilation wave has been ended. Richard survived and he began to heal up with Peter by his side. Galactus went back to work, supposedly hungrier than ever. The former heralds were all KIA or MIA, and Firelord went off to get revenge on the surviving Centurions. Drax, Super Skrull, and Praxagon all went missing, and Moondragon refused to give any information as to where they went. No one has even seen Cammy since she escaped that planet. And Ravenous? After all of his negotiations with the Kree people, he took what he had and he went to the remaining Annihilation wave, and he held up an egg to the bugs to announce Annihilus is born again. Now, this is potentially where we're going to end our story of Annihilation. But do not worry, if you liked this, if you really liked the Marvel Space Epic, because I know I did, give this video a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel. Because if it does well enough, then we will continue with Annihilation Conquest, which follows the story of Nova trying to bring together another force to fight against Ultron, who's trying to take over the galaxy. And we'll follow along with the Guardians of the Galaxy, the 2008 run, where Star-Lord built the original Guardians out of what happened here. Two different storylines, and if you want them, I need to know. Otherwise, this may be the potential end of the storyline. Don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Comicstorian, and I'll see you next time right here.